Hello my friends, welcome to my Energy Economist channel. We are going to start today by knowing the second half of the oil age and related issues of the peak oil. So stay with me. Colin Campbell, a noted analyst in the field, calls the new era of global oil supply that we are entering the second half of the oil age. Given that for the century and a half of the first half of the oil age, the world used primarily conventional oil from oil fields, what would indicate the start of the second half? There are several candidates to mark this transition point. Arguably, the second half starts where the world's ability to increase production of conventional oil becomes insufficient to meet its increasing demand for oil. It's true that currently some of the conventional oil that could come to market is being held back by some suppliers. But taking this constraint into account and also recognizing that most suppliers of conventional oil are now past their midpoint peaks in production. For some years now, the world has required increasing production of the non-conventional oils to make up for what conventional oil in fields cannot supply. This in turn pushed up the price of oil since 2005 to levels that damaged global economy activity. A later point for entry into the second half of the oil age is when the global production of conventional oil stops increasing and goes into decline, driven primarily by lack of recoverable resource of this type of oil. The increased production from the non-conventional oils must not only be enough to meet increased demand, but also to offset the decline in the production of conventional oil. This leads to the final point in time where entry to the second half of the oil age becomes apparent. The expected fall in the global production of conventional oil once past its resource-limited peak is likely to be of the order of 3% per year. It's not clear that production of the non-conventional oils can take up the slack, nor at what price, and the number of forecasting models suggests that this may not be possible. If this is indeed the case, i.e. if insufficient non-conventional oil production comes forward, then global oil production in total declines and the second half of the oil age is well and truly here. The term peak oil expresses the idea that resources of mineral resources such as petroleum will in the near future be in short supply if not totally exhausted. As shown in the figure, the basic idea is simple. Global population is increasing exponentially, and if it continues to grow, the demands of this expanding population will inevitably consume any natural resource, which manifestly is finite. The notion that we will run out of natural resources, including metals, is not new. Mills, in his celebrated article written in 1798, predicted that the increase in human population would rapidly exhaust supplies of food and natural resources, and the theme has been revisited many times since then. In the report of the Club of Rome, published as the book Limits to Growth, also used a model in which human population and the consumption of resources increased exponentially, while the rate of discovery of new resources increased at best linearly. The consequence, if the assumptions are correct, is rapid depletion of these resources, according to the more pessimistic prediction made in 1972. Global supplies of copper would now have become scarce, if not totally exhausted. Clearly, this hasn't happened. Copper is still mined in deposits all over the world in amounts that satisfy global demand. In 1972, the total amount of copper known to exist in clearly identified and readily exploitable deposits was sufficient to ensure supplies. At the rate of consumption estimated at the time for only the following 21 to 48 years, depending on the assumptions that are made. A similar dynamic has affected mineral resources. Most obvious is the continuing competition between coal, oil, and natural gas as the energy source for electric power. As the price of one of these commodities rises, another with a lower price will be substituted, taking some pressure off the search for new resources. More recently, climate change issues have encouraged a move away from coal to other energy sources. Similarly, as the price of copper rises, aluminum can be used as a substitute in many of its applications, again decreasing worries about exhaustion of the resource. Although there can be little doubt that the production of oil and gas will eventually pass through a peak, maybe this decade, maybe far later, it's by no means clear that the cause of the peak will be the progressive exhaustion of petroleum resources. As supply diminishes or is perceived to diminish, prices will increase, and this will inevitably, sooner or later, lead to a drop in demand. Use of petroleum will decline as we learn to waste less energy or find alternative energy sources, and in much the same way as pressure from public and scientific bodies led to the banning of whaling. Pressure from similar sources will lead us to limit petroleum use so as to decrease the rate of global warming. Because of the damage to the global environment caused by the release of CO2 associated with the burning of fossil fuels, many groups now advocate that even currently known resources of petroleum should never be completely exploited, but should be left in the ground or used for petrochemical production. Over the long term, these factors will certainly influence global consumption of petroleum products. It now seems more likely that many apparent peaks in production and consumption of mineral and other raw materials resulted because of exhaustion only of known deposits of the type being exploited at that time. Take the oil and gas industry as an example. It was generally believed that the global rate of production would soon start to decline if it hadn't already done so. Access to large petroleum resources, which were concentrated in the Middle East and in other regions of potential instability, had a major influence on global politics and was partly responsible for the catastrophic incursions into the region by the USA. Since then, the situation has changed dramatically. New discoveries of enormous oil fields off the coast of Brazil and the potential to find other deposits from Africa to the Arctic suggest that supply of conventional oil and gas wasn't as limited as originally thought. But the real game changer has been the discovery of vast reserves of unconventional natural gas and oil in the USA. For much of the last decade, US authorities were preoccupied by the dependence of their country on imported natural gas, often from suppliers in unstable or politically hostile countries. They had started to build a series of new terminals to accommodate tankers that would deliver liquefied natural gas to the USA from the Middle East, Indonesia, Australia, and other exporting countries. They estimated that within the decade, the USA would have to import a major portion of its natural gas. At the same time, European leaders were concerned about the dependence of their countries on imports of gas from Russia, concerns exacerbated by the pressure applied by the Russian firm Gazprom on the Ukraine and indirectly on the rest of Europe. Then, quite suddenly, technological advances allowed the extraction of gas from a new source, shale and tight sand. This resource had been known for over a century, but previously the gas couldn't be extracted economically from such low permeability rocks. Newly developed horizontal drilling methods provided better access to flat-lying sedimentary strata, and fracking or hydraulic fracturing increased their permeability, allowing gas and oil to be extracted. If you want to learn more about the second half of the oil age and related issues of the peak oil, you could do so in my book, Economics of Petroleum Principles, which is published on Amazon. Check it out at the link in the description. Please take a second to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and don't forget to also hit the notification bell. Thank you for watching and goodbye.